Hey everybody, Boris, this is BK Force. Welcome to the weekly update for majors for Euro dollar, dollar yen, and pound dollar for Feb 19, Feb 23rd, 2018. And certainly another wild and woolly week in the FX markets. Tremendous amount of volatility, not as much as the week prior, but still quite a lot of volatility. And the really big question for us is the dollar going to rebound the next week? What's interesting, I think, is that the dollar has ignored every single piece of fundamental news that's been positive for it for really the past 6 weeks. And relying on data has been a sucker's bet for everyone who tried to plow into a pro-dollar trade, which is why the technicals, I think, are our last bastion of hope. And I think this week, they may have flashed an early sign of a turn in a dollar. We'll take a look at the charts in just 1 second. But first, let's get back to the levels and event risk as we get into the week. So the levels on the majors have changed a little bit. Certainly the euro has kind of moved down a little bit to a support of 23. Resistance still very much at that 25.50, 2600 triple top, which we'll take a look at on the charts in just 1 second. The real big mover was dollar yen, which crashed to fresh 15-month lows, took out the 107s, took out the 106s, and now essentially comes to a very serious support of 105s. At which point you're going to have to start wondering, when is the BOJ and the Ministry of Finance in Japan going to step in? They've lost close to 6 yen now in a period of a month. And while, and this is interesting, and people have made this point, and I think it's a legitimate one, while yen on a trade-weighted basis against the euro, against the yuan, really not as strong as it is against the dollar, we still represent a massive part of the Japanese export business. Although, perhaps not as much, because so much of Japanese production now is done onshore. And maybe that's the reason why the Ministry of Finance is just not as perturbed and willing to intervene just yet into the markets. But the natural cycle of these yen moves always is the market always pushes the Japanese officials beyond the point of patience. And we'll have to see if that happens. Although I do think we are starting to see a very first faint sign of perhaps a small rebound in dollar yen. We'll get to that in just 1 second. So as far as pound goes, the next one, the movement here is a little bit lower. Pound is actually creating a series of lower highs. Resistance now lies at 141, support at 138. Looking at the calendar, not a lot of stuff on the calendar for the majors this week. We have a smattering of European data, none of it really that important. We have the flash PMIs on Wednesday. We have IFO and ZOO, again, nothing really that important. For the U.S. side, the only thing we have of interest is existing home sales and the FOMC minutes, which actually may be of just a modicum of support for the dollar, because if FOMC minutes reiterate the very hawkish stance of the Fed, it may provide just a small inkling of support. The true event, I think, this week on the major side is going to be the labor data out of UK, because UK has shown a weakening of fundamental data over the last month or so, which explains why cable is sort of a relative weakness trade amongst the majors. And it'll be interesting to see. We're calling for a bullish report. Service and manufacturing reported very strong job growth, but you never know. And most importantly, the other interesting factor will be the average weekly earnings, because those are going to be very determinative of whether the BOE remains hawkish or not. So this data point could be a make or break factor for cable as we go into the week on a fundamental basis. Aside from that, that's about it. There's really nothing into Friday on the major side of any import. I mean, CPI, all this stuff is just final, second revision, nothing of interest. It's really UK labor data first and foremost, iPhone ZOO out of Germany, and the Fed minutes, the FOMC minutes out of the US. They'll be a key look. Now, here's the interesting thing. Looking at the charts, we really start to see, I think, some signs of a clear turn here. First and foremost, I really like this euro chart. Look at this massive bearish engulfing, breaking all the lows and ending on the lows of the day, off of a triple top formation, right? If only life were that easy. But it certainly looks like we have a chance here to at least make 2350, possibly 23. 23 takes us down to the lower Bollinger Band over here on a dailies. That still preserves the uptrend, it still preserves the flow, but it definitely takes some heat off the table, relieves a lot of the overbought pressure here, and certainly provides a pretty decent anti-dollar trade here into the start of the week. So to me, this is probably the cleanest, purest bet as we start the week on potential anti-dollar flows into the beginning of the week. Dollar yen also has a trade, but it's precarious. There's no doubt it's definitely precarious. Dollar yen has just been a brutal one-way trade to the downside. Buying it anywhere, everywhere has been a sucker's bet. And frankly, this is actually one of the great reasons why I love technicals, and why technicals help you to time the market, but also help you to stay away when you have an opinion and the market doesn't agree. I've been dying to buy dollar yen for 4 or 5 days, but on every single day, the daily never gave me a signal, right? You look at the dailies, every time the dailies ended up on a lower note. And if you respect that, which you should, then it keeps you out of trouble. Friday, New York, this is the first day we've had in 6 where we have a small inkling of a positive candle. Nice little doji. And dojis on the yen chart tend to be responsive. Not always. I mean, here's a doji that kind of fails, right? Here's a doji that suckered a lot of people in. But the interesting part here, by the way, is that while it failed, it did provide a pause and a small move up over a period of the next week or so, right? So it's not at all impossible to imagine a situation where we drop to test the lows of 105.50, maybe even drop all the way down towards the 105s, and then that's the final flush out, and then spend the rest of the week carving our way back up towards the 107s. So while this isn't a clear sign of a turn, it's certainly the first inkling of one. That's why I wanted to point this out to you. Over here too, you have lots of examples of really nice, clean doji turns. They may not be good for more than 150, 200 points, but still, my argument here is at very minimum we're at a pause, and in the best case scenario, we're probably at a turn in dollar yen here for about 150 points up to the 107s. We can move up to 107.20 and still not break the downtrend. We can still be walking the lower Bollinger Band without really breaking the downtrend. So to me, that's an interesting trade. Although the euro trade is cleaner, certainly technically it's cleaner. You have a better chance here, I think, of not facing heat, because here you can definitely face heat to the downside one more time. Now, pound is kind of all over the place. Pound is triple top, lower failure here, right? Yes, but pound is also notorious for just being so fakey. In other words, it just sends out fake signals of direction all the time. If we have positive news, it's not at all impossible for us to see pound relative strength, and for us to go to 42 and really test this whole triple or double top formation around 43. My point is, if you're going to short pound, you have to do it with a 400-point stop. And is that really worth it? I mean, is it really worth it to take this whole move? Because if you do it with anything less, you're almost guaranteed to get stopped out for nothing, because it could just spike out over here and then spike its way down. Maybe an intelligent way to trade the pound, and the only way I think I could see doing it, is on a momentum downward. The low here is around 39.95. So if you sell 39.70s, in other words, if we break the lows of Thursday, Friday, then that probably gives us a pretty decent chance that cable may have a move all the way down towards the 38s and the negative flows overtake. But stepping in here, you're kind of stepping into no man's land, and you have to pay a very heavy price, I think, in terms of risk in order to find out if you're right or wrong. So cable is very iffy. If I'm going to rank the majors as far as signals go, euro looks cleanest to me. Yen definitely looks like a possibility, but beware of the fact that you could have a double test of the lows. And cable is the most murky. That's how the week shapes up in the wagers. Wish you guys the best luck, the best trading. Boris, over and out.